The Indomitable drifted through the darkness between stars, its hull a patchwork of metal plates that didn't quite match. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge watching the viewing screen with tired eyes. 3 months of travel had brought them here, to the edge of known space, where Earth's first faster-than-light ship would make history. "Contact," said Lieutenant Morrison from his station. "Multiple ships emerging from faster-than-light." "They're big, Commander." Sarah straightened in her chair. This was it. First contact with alien life. She'd rehearsed the speeches 100 times, practiced the diplomatic protocols until she could recite them in her sleep. But now that the moment had arrived, her mouth felt dry. The ships that appeared on screen took her breath away. They were beautiful in a way that made the Indomitable look like a garbage scow. Smooth, perfect curves of silver metal that seemed to flow like water. No visible seams, no weapon ports, no imperfections at all. They moved with grace that suggested intelligence far beyond humanity's crude attempts at space travel. "They're hailing us," Morrison said. "Audio and visual. Put them through." The face that appeared on the screen was human. Perfectly, impossibly human. The man had features that could have been carved by a master sculptor, symmetrical and flawless. His skin showed no blemishes, no scars, no signs of aging despite what appeared to be middle years. His eyes were a striking blue that seemed almost artificial in their clarity. "Greetings," the man said in perfect English, though his lips didn't quite match the words. Translation technology, Sarah realized. "I am eldest son of the Covenant, representative of the Ascendancy. We have been monitoring your approach for several weeks." Sarah found her voice. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of Earth's vessel Indomitable. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent species." The man's expression didn't change. No smile, no frown, just a neutral mask of perfection. "Earth," he said. "Yes, we know of Earth. It is our ancestral home." Silence fell across the bridge. Sarah heard someone gasp behind her. Her own heart hammered in her chest. "What did you say?" "We are human," eldest son said calmly. "Or rather, we were human 50,000 years ago. Our ancestors left Earth during what you would call the last ice age. We deemed the planet's chaotic evolution a failed experiment. We departed to perfect ourselves." Chief Engineer Marcus Webb pushed forward from his station. "That's impossible. There's no evidence of that level of civilization 50,000 years ago." "We removed such evidence before departure," eldest son replied. "It seemed cruel to leave you with knowledge of your own inadequacy." Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, hot and sharp. She pushed it down with the discipline that had carried her through Earth's brutal water wars. "Inadequacy? We survived. We evolved. We built ships that crossed the stars." For the first time, something flickered across eldest son's perfect face. "Was it pity?" "You built that ship," he said, gesturing at the Indomitable. "A vessel held together with fusion welds and desperation. You carry genetic diseases, emotional instability, violent tendencies. You age and die within a century. You are the discarded draft, Commander. The mistakes our ancestors left behind when they chose to become something better." Dr. Amara Okonkwo stepped forward, her dark eyes sharp with scientific curiosity despite the insult. "Better how? What did you do to yourselves?" "Over 50,000 years, we perfected the human genome," eldest son explained. "We eliminated disease, corrected emotional imbalances, optimized cognitive function. We removed the chaos that plagued our ancestors. There are now 12 perfect templates of humanity, each optimized for specific functions. I am Template 7, designed for diplomatic and administrative excellence." 12 templates? Amara's voice carried horror. "You reduced human genetic diversity to 12 patterns?" "We refined it," eldest son corrected. "The Ascendancy numbers 300 billion individuals across 2,000 worlds. We have no war, no crime, no suffering. Every citizen is content, healthy, and lives for 5 centuries. We have achieved what your ancestors could only dream of." Sarah looked at the perfect face on the screen and felt a chill run down her spine. No war, no crime, no suffering. It sounded like paradise. But something about the way eldest son spoke, the complete absence of expression, the mechanical quality of his words, it all felt wrong. "Why contact us now?" she asked. "We have a proposal," eldest son said. "You carry our ancestral genetic code, flawed though it is. We wish to correct this mistake. Return to Earth, we will send medical ships. Within 2 generations, humanity will be elevated to join the Ascendancy. You will be perfected. And if we refuse?" Now eldest son's expression did change, though barely. A slight tightening around the eyes, a fractional drop in the corners of his mouth. Then you will be quarantined to your solar system for your own protection and the safety of the galaxy. We have encountered 17 other species in our expansion. All were genetically suboptimal. All were corrected or contained. You will choose which fate you prefer. Sarah looked around her bridge. Morrison, young and idealistic, looked shocked. Webb's hands had curled into fists. Amara was furiously taking notes, her scientific mind already analyzing every word. These were her people. Scarred, flawed, chaotic humanity. They had survived ice ages and plagues, wars and disasters. They had clawed their way up from caves to reach the stars. We need time to consider, Sarah said carefully. Of course, eldest son replied. You may have 72 hours. We will escort you to Ascendancy Prime, so your leadership may witness what perfection looks like. Then you will decide. The transmission ended. Sarah sat back in her chair, feeling the weight of the entire human race settling on her shoulders. Around her, the bridge erupted in conversation. Questions, fears, anger, all spilling out at once. But Sarah just stared at the perfect silver ships on the screen and thought about what had been lost in the pursuit of perfection. These ascendants had no scars because they'd never fought for anything. No wrinkles because they'd never laughed so hard they cried. No imperfections because they'd eliminated everything that made life worth living. She didn't know if humanity would survive what came next. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never let them take away what made humans human. Ascendancy Prime filled the viewing screen like a jewel floating in space. The planet was perfect, Sarah thought bitterly. Everything was perfect with these people. Perfect cities with perfect geometry. Perfect weather patterns controlled by perfect technology. Even the clouds seemed to move in mathematically precise formations. The Indomitable had been escorted for 3 days through Ascendancy space. 6 silver warships surrounded them, not threatening but not exactly friendly either. Guards for the flawed humans who might contaminate their perfect society. I count 17 cities, Webb said from his station, studying the sensor readings. Each with exactly the same population. Exactly the same layout. Not similar. Identical. Efficient, Morrison offered, though his voice carried doubt. Creepy, Webb muttered. Sarah had to agree. She'd spent the past 3 days reviewing every scan, every data packet, every interaction with the Ascendancy. The more she learned, the less she liked what she saw. Dr. Okonkwo entered the bridge, her tablet clutched in her hands. Her eyes had dark circles under them. She hadn't slept since they'd arrived. Commander, you need to see this. Sarah took the tablet and began reading. Genetic analysis, population studies, historical records that the Ascendancy had freely shared. They were proud of what they'd accomplished. Why wouldn't they share their success? The words made Sarah's blood run cold. They eliminated 90% of human genetic diversity, Amara said quietly. 50,000 years ago, humans on Earth had hundreds of thousands of genetic variations. The Ascendancy reduced that to 12 templates, 12 sets of DNA for 300 billion people. That's cloning, Webb said. Not exactly, Amara replied. Each individual is slightly different, but only within very narrow parameters. It's like they took 12 perfect sculptures and made endless copies with tiny variations. They eliminated everything that made us genetically unique. Show me the emotional range data, Sarah said. Amara tapped the tablet. A new graph appeared showing human emotional responses. Earth humans had a wide, chaotic spectrum. Joy, anger, sadness, fear, love, hate, all peaks and valleys of feeling. The Ascendancy's graph was nearly flat. Mild contentment, mild interest, mild satisfaction. Nothing more. They can't feel real happiness, Amara whispered. They can't feel real love. They removed the genetic basis for strong emotions because strong emotions lead to unpredictable behavior. They optimized themselves into emotional numbness. Receiving transmission from the surface, Morrison announced. Eldest son requests you join him for a tour of the capital city. Sarah stood. Webb Okonkwo, you're with me. Morrison, you have the bridge. If anything goes wrong, you run. Get back to Earth and warn them. Commander, that's an order. The transport shuttle was, of course, perfect. Smooth ride, perfect temperature, seats that adjusted to exactly the right position. Sarah hated every second of it. The capital city was called Unity. Of course it was. Wide streets filled with perfect people moving in perfect patterns. No one ran. No one shouted. No one laughed. They walked with purpose, spoke in measured tones, conducted their perfect lives in perfect order. Eldest son met them at the central plaza. Behind him stood a massive building of white stone. The Hall of Governance, he explained. All major decisions are made here through logical consensus. There has not been a disputed vote in 12,000 years. Because everyone thinks the same way, Webb said. Because everyone thinks correctly. Eldest son corrected without offense. Emotion clouds judgment. We have removed the clouds. They toured factories where perfect workers built perfect machines, schools where perfect children learned perfect lessons, medical facilities where perfect doctors treated the rare imperfections that still arose. Everything ran like clockwork because everything was clockwork. Humans reduced to biological machines, each performing their programmed function. Sarah watched an ascendant child in a learning center. The child was beautiful with features that suggested Template 3 genetics. The child sat perfectly still, absorbing information from a holographic display. No fidgeting, no daydreaming, no childhood wonder, just cold acquisition of data. What happened to play? Sarah asked quietly. Play is inefficient, eldest son replied. Children learn through optimized educational programs. They achieve in 10 years what your children require 18 years to learn. But do they laugh? Sarah pressed. Do they make mud pies and scrape their knees and tell stupid jokes? No, eldest son said simply. Those activities serve no purpose. That evening, back aboard the Indomitable, Sarah called her senior staff to her ready room. Webb brought a bottle of whiskey he'd smuggled aboard. Sarah didn't object. They all needed it. I found something else, Amara said, pulling up data on the room's display, buried in their historical records. The Ascendancy has encountered 23 other intelligent species during their expansion. You said 17 before, Sarah noted. 17 were deemed genetically suboptimal, Amara explained. The Ascendancy wiped them out. Not through war, through genetic modification. They rewrote those species at the DNA level, made them into copies of Ascendancy templates. Those species don't exist anymore. Not really. They're all just variants of the 12 perfect templates now. That's genocide, Webb said. The Ascendancy calls it elevation, Amara replied. The other 6 species were deemed compatible enough to integrate. They were genetically modified to fit Ascendancy standards. They're still alive, technically. But they're not what they were. Sarah poured herself a drink and downed it in one gulp. They're going to do it to us. That's the plan. They'll come to Earth with their medical ships and their genetic modification technology, and they'll eliminate everything that makes us human. We could fight, Webb suggested. With what? Sarah gestured at the window, where the perfect silver warships still maintained their escort. We have one ship held together with fusion welds and prayer. They have thousands of warships with technology centuries ahead of ours. Then what do we do? Morrison asked. Sarah looked at her crew. Webb with his scarred hands from 100 engineering accidents. Amara with worry lines around her eyes from years of studying impossible problems. Morrison, young and scared, but still standing tall. They were imperfect, flawed, chaotic humans, and they were beautiful because of it. We run, Sarah said, and we warn Earth. The Ascendancy thinks they're offering us paradise. They're really offering us extinction. She activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for emergency departure. We're leaving Ascendancy space immediately. They won't let us go, Amara said quietly. I know, Sarah replied, but we're going to try anyway. Within minutes, the Indomitable began powering up its engines. The Ascendancy warships immediately moved to intercept. Sarah watched them close in, their perfect silver hulls reflecting the light of Ascendancy Prime's sun. Receiving communication, Morrison said. Eldest son is demanding we stand down. Ignore it, Sarah ordered. Full power to engines. Plot a course out of the system. 3 warships are targeting us with weapons, Webb reported. Their targeting systems are locking on. Sarah gripped the arms of her chair. This was it. They'd either escape or die trying, but at least they'd die human. Punch it, she commanded. The Indomitable lurched forward, its mismatched engines roaring to life. Behind them, the perfect warships of the Ascendancy began their pursuit. The Helios debris field stretched before them like a graveyard of stars. Thousands of asteroid fragments tumbled through space, remnants of a planet that had torn itself apart millions of years ago. Sarah had chosen this location deliberately. If they were going to die, they'd make the Ascendancy work for it. 3 warships still in pursuit, Morrison reported. His voice cracked with fear. They're gaining. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Ascendancy ships moved with perfect precision, maintaining optimal firing positions, adjusting their formation in response to every maneuver the Indomitable attempted. Their weapons had already scored a dozen hits. The Indomitable's shields were down to 40%. Their targeting is too good, Webb said from the engineering station. It's like they know what we're going to do before we do it. They probably do, Amara replied. She'd been studying the data on Ascendancy military operations. Their ships are linked through quantum communication. They share sensor data instantaneously. Their AI systems predict enemy movements based on optimal tactical responses. Optimal, Sarah repeated. The word tasted bitter. Everything with the Ascendancy was optimal, perfect, predictable. An idea began forming in her mind. A terrible, beautiful, completely insane idea. Webb, she said, what if we stop being optimal? The chief engineer looked at her like she'd gone crazy. Commander, they're predicting our movements because we're doing what makes tactical sense. What if we did things that made no sense at all? Webb's eyes widened. That's suicide, maybe, Sarah admitted. But it might also be the only chance we have. They can predict optimal behavior. Can they predict chaos? Another impact rocked the ship. Alarms blared across the bridge. The lights flickered. Shields at 20%, Morrison called out. Sarah made her decision. Webb, I need you to damage our own ship. What? Introduce random system failures. Make our thrusters misfire. Create unpredictable power fluctuations. I want this ship to move like a drunk sailor trying to dance. Commander, that could kill us. They're definitely going to kill us if we keep doing what we're doing. Morrison, same for tactical. Stop using the computer's firing solutions. I want manual targeting. Aim where your gut tells you to aim, not where the computer says is optimal. Sarah could see the doubt on their faces. She was asking them to throw away everything they'd been trained to do. Starship combat was about precision, calculation, optimal responses. She was asking for chaos, trust me, she said quietly. These people eliminated everything unpredictable from their own existence. They won't know how to fight something that doesn't make sense. Webb took a deep breath, then nodded. His hands flew across the engineering console. Introducing random variants into the thruster control systems. We're about to get very bouncy. The Indomitable immediately began moving erratically. It lurched left, then dove, then rolled in a way that made Sarah's stomach flip. Behind them, she saw the Ascendancy ships adjust their firing patterns, trying to compensate, and they missed. For the first time since the chase began, their perfect targeting systems failed to predict where the Indomitable would be. It's working, Morrison said, surprise in his voice. They can't get a lock on us. Don't celebrate yet, Sarah said. They'll adapt. We need to get more creative. Webb status report. Shields at 15%. Hull breaches on deck 7 and 9. We've lost the port cargo bay. Main engines operating at 70%. The ship is falling apart, Commander. Good, Sarah said. Use it. Vent atmosphere from the port side. Use it like a thruster. That'll kill anyone in those sections. I already evacuated those decks. Do it. Webb hesitated only a second, then activated the controls. Atmosphere explosively vented from the port side of the ship, shoving the Indomitable into a wild spin. One of the Ascendancy ships had been moving to intercept. The sudden physically damaging maneuver put them directly in front of it. Morrison, fire everything, Sarah commanded. The tactical officer didn't use the targeting computer. He just pointed at the enemy ship and pulled the trigger. Missiles and particle beams lanced out from the Indomitable, not in a coordinated pattern, but in a spray of weapons fire that covered a wide area. The Ascendancy ship tried to evade, but its predictive systems had calculated that the Indomitable would try to escape, not attack in a suicide maneuver. Half the weapons fire missed. The other half slammed into the perfect silver hull. Direct hit, Morrison shouted. Their shields are down. They're venting atmosphere. Sarah didn't let up. Target their engines. Webb, can we detonate the cargo bay? The one we just lost? Yes, there's still fuel cells in there, right? Webb checked his systems. Yeah, but Commander, that'll damage us as much as them. Do it when I give the signal. Morrison, get us close to that wounded ship. The Indomitable limped toward the damaged Ascendancy vessel. The other two enemy ships were repositioning, trying to get clear shots, but they were being cautious now. They'd seen one of their perfect ships damaged by the chaotic humans. They were recalculating. Now, Sarah said. Webb detonated the cargo bay. The explosion ripped through the Indomitable's port side. Metal screamed. The ship spun like a top. But the explosion also created a massive debris field between them and the damaged Ascendancy ship. Chunks of metal, fuel cells, cargo containers all moving at high velocity. The Ascendancy ship's computer tried to calculate safe passage through the debris. It couldn't. There were too many variables, too much chaos. The ship moved right into a piece of their own cargo bay. The impact breached their fusion core. The Ascendancy warship exploded in a flash of light that temporarily blinded the viewing screens. "One down," Webb said, disbelief in his voice. "We actually got one." But the celebration was short-lived. The remaining 2 Ascendancy ships opened fire with renewed intensity. The Indomitable shook like it was being torn apart. "Shields gone," Morrison reported. "We're taking direct hull damage. Multiple breaches. Casualties coming in from all decks." "Head into the densest part of the debris field," Sarah ordered. "Use the asteroids for cover." "Commander, some of those asteroids are huge. If we hit one at this speed, we won't," Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. "Because we're not going to try to avoid them optimally. We're going to thread the needle using pure human instinct. Webb, kill the navigation computer. Morrison, you're our eyes. Call out obstacles." "You're insane," Webb said, but he disabled the computer. The Indomitable plunged into the asteroid field with Sarah at the manual controls. She didn't calculate angles or trajectories. She just flew, reacting to Morrison's shouts, trusting her instincts, moving the ship like she was dancing rather than following mathematical formulas. Behind them, the Ascendancy ships followed, their perfect coordination struggling with the chaos of the environment and the unpredictable human piloting. One Ascendancy ship tried to pursue too closely. It calculated the optimal path through the asteroids. But optimal meant predictable. Sarah saw the opening. She spun the Indomitable around a large asteroid, using its gravity to slingshot them in a direction that should have torn the ship apart. The Indomitable groaned. Hull plates buckled, but they held. The Ascendancy ship, following its perfect calculations, moved into the space where the Indomitable should have been. Instead, it found a massive asteroid that the humans had deliberately baited them toward. The collision was catastrophic. 2 down, Morrison whispered. But the Indomitable was dying. Atmosphere leaked from 100 breaches. Half the crew was dead or wounded. The engines were barely functioning. The last Ascendancy ship held back now, cautious. It was reassessing, learning. That was the danger. If they gave the Ascendancy time to adapt to chaos, humanity would lose its only advantage. "Webb," Sarah said quietly. "How much do we have left?" The engineer looked at his readouts and shook his head. "Not much, Commander. One more hit and we're done." "Then we make it count," Sarah said. "I need everything you can give me. One final push." Webb met her eyes and understood. "I can overload the fusion reactor. Give us maybe 30 seconds of full power, but after that we won't have engines at all." "Do it," Sarah commanded. "Morrison, plot a collision course with that last ship." "Commander, they think we're trying to escape." "They think we want to live. Let's show them what humans do when we're cornered." The Indomitable turned toward the last Ascendancy ship and accelerated to full power. The wounded vessel screamed in protest, but it moved faster than it had any right to. The Ascendancy ship's computer couldn't comprehend what it was seeing. The humans were committing suicide. That wasn't logical. That wasn't optimal. At the last second, Sarah pulled up hard, skimming over the Ascendancy ship's hull. Morrison fired every remaining weapon directly into their shields at point-blank range. The shields collapsed. The Indomitable scraped across the enemy hull, tearing metal, ripping through compartments. Then they were past, tumbling through space, engines dead, life support failing. Behind them, the damaged Ascendancy ship tried to pursue, but its systems were too compromised. It pulled back, retreating to repair. Sarah sat in her chair, breathing hard as her crew cheered around her. They'd survived. Barely. They'd lost 40% of their people. Their ship was held together by hope and welding. But they'd beaten 3 perfect warships through sheer beautiful chaos. "Set course for the refugee coordinates Dr. Okonkwo found," Sarah said quietly. "We need help. And we need to warn the galaxy that perfection can be beaten." The station called Haven wasn't much to look at. Cobbled together from scrapped ships and salvaged materials, it tumbled slowly through space in a region the Ascendancy charts marked as empty. But the charts were wrong. Haven was here, hidden behind layers of jamming technology and false sensor readings. home to refugees from a dozen different species. The Indomitable limped into docking range looking like it had been chewed up and spat out. Because it had been. Repair crews from Haven were already swarming over the hull before they'd even finished docking procedures. Sarah stood at the airlock, watching aliens work alongside each other to save her ship. She saw a species that looked like walking crystals welding hull plates. Another that resembled a giant mantis was rerouting power cables with delicate precision. A third species, something that looked like an ambulatory tree, was sealing atmosphere leaks with some kind of biological resin. "They're all refugees," said a voice beside her. Sarah turned to find a creature that looked almost human, except for the silver skin and eyes that had no pupils. "All running from the Ascendancy. All marked for correction or elimination." "Who are you?" Sarah asked. "I am called Silver. My species was the Calith. We were. Before the Ascendancy found us, they modified our genetics to fit their templates. I'm one of the last original Calith left. Most of my people are now just pale copies of the 12 Ascendancy templates." Sarah felt anger surge through her. "How many species have they done this to?" "Dozens," Silver replied. "The lucky ones escaped before the genetic modification began. The unlucky ones are extinct in everything but name. Come. The Council wants to meet the humans who damaged 3 Ascendancy warships." The Council chamber was a circular room at the heart of Haven Station. Representatives from 16 different species sat in a ring. Some were humanoid. Others were so alien that Sarah had trouble understanding how they communicated. But they all had one thing in common. They'd all fled from Ascendancy perfection. "Humans," said a Voth representative, its voice coming through a translator device. The Voth looked like a slug the size of a bear, with tentacles that glowed with bioluminescence. "We have heard of your homeworld. The Ascendancy speaks of it as their place of origin. They left 50,000 years ago," Sarah explained. "They deemed us failures and went off to perfect themselves. Now they want to come back and fix their mistake." "They always do," said a Krell, a species that looked like a bipedal lizard with feathers. "They offered us the same choice. Join them or be quarantined. We chose to fight. We lost. Only a few thousand of us escaped. How did you find each other?" Webb asked. He'd come along to the council meeting, fascinated by the different technologies on display. "Desperation," Silver answered. "When you're running from extinction, you find others running from the same fate. We share resources, technology, warnings. The Ascendancy controls most of known space, but there are gaps, regions they haven't surveyed. That's where we hide." Dr. Okonkwo had been quiet, studying a datapad. Now she looked up with excitement in her eyes. "I need to see your genetic data. All of you. I think I found something." "What kind of something?" Sarah asked. "A weapon," Amara said. "Maybe. I need to confirm it first." The council provided access to their medical facilities. Amara spent 3 days locked in the lab, barely eating or sleeping. Sarah checked on her regularly, but the doctor waved her away each time, muttering about genetic sequences and evolutionary bottlenecks. On the 4th day, Amara burst into Sarah's temporary quarters, her eyes wild with discovery. "They're dying," she said without preamble. "The Ascendancy is dying and they don't even know it." Sarah sat up from her bunk. "Explain." Amara pulled up holographic displays showing complex genetic maps that Sarah couldn't fully understand. But she got the basic idea. "Evolution requires variation," Amara explained. "Random mutations, genetic diversity, unpredictable changes. That's how species adapt to new environments, new diseases, new challenges. The Ascendancy eliminated variation. They've been reproducing from the same 12 genetic templates for 50,000 years. So they can't evolve," Sarah said, understanding dawning. "Exactly," Amara confirmed. "I analyzed their historical records. Guess when their last genuine genetic mutation occurred? 12,000 years ago. Since then, nothing. They're genetically frozen. Meanwhile, Earth humans have undergone significant genetic changes in the same time period. We're still evolving. They stopped. That's why they're so desperate to control other species," Webb said. He'd followed Amara to Sarah's quarters. "They've reached an evolutionary dead end. They can't adapt anymore, so they force everyone else to become like them." "It's worse than that," Amara said. "I compared their genetics to Earth-human genetics. We carry genetic potential they deliberately deleted from themselves. Thousands of genes that allow for greater emotional range, creative thinking, adaptability. They cut those out in their quest for perfection. They made themselves incapable of the very things that make intelligence useful. Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking out at the assembled refugee ships. Each one represented a species that had refused to give up their identity, their diversity, their right to be imperfect. An idea was forming. Can we use this against them? She asked. Theoretically, Amara said slowly. If we could introduce random genetic variations back into their population, it would overwhelm their systems. Their entire society is based on genetic uniformity. Chaos at the genetic level would be catastrophic for them. But that would take years to develop, Webb pointed out, and we'd need access to their genetic databases. They keep backups of all 12 templates, Silver interjected from the doorway. How long had the alien been standing there? In the Grand Gene Repository at Ascendancy Prime. It's the most heavily defended location in their entire empire. Sarah turned back to face the room. So we'd need to launch an assault on the Ascendancy's capital world, penetrate their strongest defenses and upload a genetic virus into their most sacred database. Yes, Amara confirmed. With what? Webb asked. We have one barely functional ship and a station full of refugees. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. We have something better. We have chaos. We have unpredictability. We have species that the Ascendancy couldn't control or correct. And we have nothing left to lose. She walked back to the window and activated the comm system. This is Commander Sarah Chen to all vessels at Haven Station. I need volunteers for a suicide mission. The response was immediate. Every ship at the station signaled their willingness to join. The plan came together over the next week. It was insane, dangerous, and had maybe a 5% chance of success. But 5% was better than 0. The refugee species contributed what they could. The Krell had ships that generated false sensor readings. The Voth had technology that could create localized time distortions. The crystalline Shen had weapons that fired at unpredictable angles. And the humans contributed chaos. Dr. Okonkwo worked with Voth scientists to create the Pandora Protocol, a genetic virus that would reintroduce randomness into the Ascendancy's perfect templates. Not enough to kill them, just enough to make them imperfect. To give them back the ability to evolve. Webb designed delivery systems that would work differently every time they were used. Missiles that changed course mid-flight. Energy weapons that had random power outputs. Nothing the Ascendancy could predict or defend against. Morrison trained the refugee crews on human combat tactics. Don't think, don't plan. Just react. Trust your instincts. Fight like you're desperate because you are. On the eve of the assault, Sarah called her crew together. The Indomitable had been repaired as much as possible, reinforced with alien technologies that didn't quite fit but worked well enough. It was more of a patchwork now than ever, a symbol of diversity and cooperation. We're probably going to die tomorrow, Sarah said bluntly. The Ascendancy will send their entire Third Fleet against us. 47 perfect warships against our ragtag fleet of 12 ships held together with duct tape and hope. I like those odds, Webb said with a grin. We're not trying to win a military victory, Sarah continued. We're trying to deliver a message. A genetic message that says perfection is a lie, that diversity is strength, that chaos is life. If we can upload the Pandora Protocol to the gene repository, we'll have given the Ascendancy something they eliminated from themselves, the ability to change. And if we fail, Morrison asked. Then Earth needs to know what's coming, Sarah replied. I've already sent a message drone with all our data. If we don't make it, at least humanity will be warned. The next morning, 12 ships left Haven Station in formation. At their center was the battered, scarred, impossible Indomitable, carrying humans who refused to be perfected. They set course for Ascendancy Prime. Behind them, the Ascendancy's Third Fleet mobilized in response. 47 perfect warships moving in perfect formation to eliminate the imperfect threat. Sarah sat in her command chair and smiled. They had no idea what was coming for them. Let's show them what imperfection can do, she said. The battle for the future of humanity began. The Ascendancy Third Fleet appeared on sensors like a wall of silver death. 47 warships, each one perfect, each one identical. Moving in formation so precise it looked computer-generated. Because it was. The Ascendancy Fleet moved as one organism, sharing data through quantum links. Thinking together, predicting together, against them. 12 refugee ships tumbled through space in what looked like complete disarray. No formation, no coordination. Each ship moving according to its own plan, its own instinct, its own desperation. They're hailing us, Morrison said. Eldest son wants to talk. Put him through, Sarah ordered. The perfect face appeared on screen, still showing that infuriating lack of emotion. Commander Chen, you have made a grievous error. Surrender now and you will be corrected rather than eliminated. This is your final opportunity. We don't want your perfection, Sarah replied. We don't want your correction. We want the right to remain beautifully flawed. Then you choose extinction, eldest son said. The Third Fleet will ensure compliance. The transmission ended. The Ascendancy Fleet opened fire. The Refugee Fleet scattered like seeds in the wind. The Krell ships activated their false sensor technology, creating phantom vessels that confused the Ascendancy targeting systems. The Voth deployed their time distortion fields, making pockets of space where time moved at different rates. The crystalline Shen fired weapons that bounced at impossible angles, and at the center of the chaos, the Indomitable charged straight toward Ascendancy Prime like a missile aimed at the heart of perfection. They're trying to cut us off, Webb reported. 12 ships breaking formation to intercept. Let them come, Sarah said. Everyone else do your jobs. We just need to get through. The battle became a storm of light and metal. Ascendancy ships fired with perfect accuracy at where their targets should be. But the refugee ships were never where they should be. They moved erratically, unpredictably, using strategies that made no tactical sense. A Krell ship deliberately rammed an Ascendancy vessel, sacrificing itself to create an opening. The crew knew they were going to die. They did it anyway because they believed in what they were fighting for. Krell vessel destroyed, Morrison reported, his voice tight. But they took an Ascendancy ship with them. More ships fell on both sides. The Voth time ships created bubbles where Ascendancy vessels aged decades in seconds, their perfect hulls corroding and failing, but the Ascendancy adapted, targeting the time ships with overwhelming firepower. Voth lead ship is gone, Webb said. Both Shen vessels are heavily damaged. How many Ascendancy ships left? Sarah asked. 39 and counting. We've lost 6 of ours. The Indomitable shook as weapons fire scored its hull. They were close now. So close to Ascendancy Prime. Sarah could see the perfect planet on the view screen, could see the orbital defense platforms powering up. The gene repository is on the surface, Amara said from her station. She'd insisted on coming to the bridge, carrying the Pandora protocol in a secure data device. We need to get within broadcast range. That means entering the atmosphere, Webb said. Commander, this ship won't survive atmospheric entry. We're already barely holding together. Then we'll fall apart spectacularly, Sarah replied. All remaining ships, this is Chen, cover our descent. We're going down. The remaining refugee vessels threw themselves at the Ascendancy fleet with renewed desperation. They couldn't win, but they could buy time. The Indomitable dove toward the planet, engines screaming, hull plates glowing red from atmospheric friction. Orbital defense platforms fired, but Sarah flew like she had in the asteroid field, trusting instinct over calculation. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Webb shouted. We're losing structural integrity. Just get us close enough to broadcast, Sarah ordered. They were falling now, more than flying. The ship's nose pointed toward the glittering white city below. Unity. The capital of perfection. The place where the gene repository held the 12 perfect templates that defined the Ascendancy. Broadcast range in 30 seconds, Amara said. Her hands were steady as she prepared to upload the Pandora protocol. An Ascendancy ship appeared beside them, matching their descent. Its weapons charged. Brace for impact, Morrison said. Before the enemy could fire, a Voth ship appeared from nowhere, ramming into the Ascendancy vessel. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. 20 seconds, Amara counted. More Ascendancy ships were converging. The Indomitable wouldn't survive another hit. Sarah could see it on her crew's faces. They knew they were going to die. 10 seconds. Sarah activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, it's been an honor serving with you. We chose to remain human. We chose chaos over perfection. And we're about to show the galaxy that our choice matters. 5 seconds. The gene repository was visible now. A massive pyramid of white stone at the city's center. Broadcasting, Amara said, and activated the Pandora protocol. The signal burst from the Indomitable, not as a weapon but as a message. Genetic code that would rewrite the perfect templates, not to destroy them but to give them back what they'd lost. Variation, randomness, the ability to evolve. The Ascendancy's computer systems tried to block it, But the Pandora Protocol was designed by imperfect minds. It changed as it transmitted, mutating, adapting, finding ways through the defenses that perfect logic couldn't predict. "Upload complete," Amara said quietly. "It's in their system." "Then we won," Sarah said. An ascendancy missile struck the Indomitable's engines. The ship lost all power. They were falling now, completely out of control. "Evacuate," Sarah ordered. "All crew to escape pods." "Commander, you need to come too," Webb insisted. "Someone needs to steer this wreck away from the city," Sarah replied. She looked at her crew, Morrison young and brave, Webb scarred and brilliant, Amara, who'd figured out how to save humanity by teaching the Ascendancy to be imperfect. Go. That's an order. They didn't want to leave. She saw it in their eyes. But they went, because they were still her crew and they followed orders. Sarah sat alone on the bridge as the Indomitable fell. She used the last of the maneuvering thrusters to angle away from the city, let the ship crash in the empty fields outside Unity. No need to kill civilians who'd never chosen their own perfection. The ground rushed up to meet her. Sarah had time for one last transmission. She broadcasted on all frequencies, aimed at every Ascendancy world. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. You tried to make us perfect. We chose to stay human instead. We've given you a gift. The Pandora Protocol is now in your genetic database. It will introduce randomness back into your templates. Your children will be different from you. They'll be imperfect. They'll be capable of evolution. We're giving you back your future even if you don't want it, because that's what imperfect beings do. We make chaotic, unpredictable, illogical choices. And sometimes those choices save the world." The Indomitable hit the ground. 20 years passed. The monument stood where the Indomitable had crashed, a twisted sculpture of metal incorporating pieces of the destroyed ship. People came from across the galaxy to see it, to remember the day chaos defeated perfection. Amara Okonkwo, now gray-haired and walking with a cane, stood before the monument with a young Ascendant girl. The girl was perhaps 10 years old, with features that didn't quite match any of the 12 original templates. Her eyes were different colors. Her smile was crooked. She was imperfect. "Tell me again about Commander Chen," the girl said. "She was brave," Amara replied, "and stubborn, and completely insane. She saved your people by teaching them how to be flawed." "My teacher says the Pandora Protocol caused chaos," the girl said, "that our society almost fell apart." "It did," Amara confirmed. "The Ascendancy broke into hundreds of different factions when children started being born different. Some Ascendants couldn't handle it. They retreated into enclaves where they still try to maintain the 12 perfect templates. But most of us changed," the girl said. It wasn't a question. She knew her history. "Yes," Amara said. "Most of you embraced the chaos. You started creating art again. Music, poetry, things that have no logical purpose but make life worth living. You started having arguments and disagreements. You started laughing at jokes and crying at sad stories. You became human again, not perfect humans, just humans." The girl looked up at the monument. "Did Commander Chen know she was going to die?" "Yes," Amara said softly. "But she did it anyway. That's what makes humans special. We're capable of illogical self-sacrifice. We do things that make no sense except to our hearts." "I want to be like her," the girl declared. Amara smiled. It was a human smile, full of warmth and sadness mixed together. "Then be yourself. Be imperfect. Make mistakes, learn from them. Grow. Change." That's what she would have wanted. They stood together in silence, the old human scientist and the young Ascendant girl who represented everything the Pandora Protocol had achieved. Around them, the city of Unity bustled with activity, but it wasn't the silent, perfect Unity of the past. This Unity was noisy, messy, chaotic. People argued on street corners. Artists displayed paintings that made no logical sense. Children played games that had no purpose except joy. In the sky above, ships came and went. Ascendant vessels now came in hundreds of different designs rather than one perfect template. They traveled to Earth, bringing Ascendants who wanted to study the homeworld their ancestors had abandoned. To learn from the humans who'd never stopped evolving. The legacy of Commander Sarah Chen wasn't in monuments or history books. It was in the crooked smile of an imperfect child. In the argument between two Ascendants who'd never learned to argue before. In the first piece of truly original music composed in Ascendancy space in 50,000 years. It was in the beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable mess that was life. Come on, Amara said to the girl. Let me show you the museum. There's a section about the refugee species. Your people are thinking about inviting them back, apologizing for trying to correct them. Will they come back? The girl asked. Maybe, Amara said. Forgiveness is another one of those illogical human traits, but it's a good one. As they walked away from the monument, Amara looked back one last time at the twisted metal sculpture. She could almost see Sarah sitting in that command chair, chin raised in defiance, refusing to be perfected. Thank you, Amara whispered, for teaching the galaxy that our flaws are what make us beautiful. The wind blew across the memorial, carrying with it the laughter of imperfect children playing in fields where perfection once reigned. And somewhere in the chaos of life continuing, Commander Sarah Chen's sacrifice lived on, not in perfection but in the glorious mess of existence itself.